Welcome to the Modco podcast. Conversations about life, organization, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. This show was created for every woman who needs motivation, inspiration, and a reminder to give herself grace. The mission here is simple: be transparent, non judgmental, authentic, honest, and to have fun. Because sometimes you need to laugh at yourself. I'm your host, Angel. Sit back and get ready for valuable tips, resources, laughs, and more. If you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back, and I hope you brought a friend. If this is your first time here, welcome, and thanks for joining. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Happy 2025. I hope that your year is off to a great start and that you had a wonderful break. We are just now my son and I are just now getting back into like the swing of things from our 2 week break. My husband has pretty much been working the whole break. So, but we enjoyed our break. We had a good time. I actually got to do something that I haven't done since I was a little girl. It's actually been over 30 years since I've done this. It also feels weird to me to say that I did something over 30 years ago. I still feel like I'm younger than my actual age is. And it's just really weird to me that I can say something happened 30 years ago. It's also really kind of weird to me that this is my last year, my 30s. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like, ooh, I'm getting older. I have to lie about my age. It's like that saying, it's like you look around for the adult and you realize that, oh, I am the adult in this situation. So that's where we are. Our birthday in a couple of days here. So, chapter 39 coming up, but I'm excited for it. Okay, so back to what I did. I went ice skating. Like, I cannot believe that I actually went ice skating. My husband decided that we could all use a fun day out, and he told me that he would plan something and let me know what it was. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. The next morning, he woke us up and told us to dress warm for our activity that we were going to do. And I was like, well, my son asked, he's like, what are we doing? I said, we're going ice skating. And my husband was like, how did you know that we were going ice skating? I was like, you said dress warm. We live in the South, and yeah, it's December, but how warm do we really need to dress to go outside in the South in December? So we went ice skating, and I only went ice skating, as I said, one time before when I was in the first grade on a field trip. And this was actually when my dad was stationed in Germany. So I got sick on the trip, and I could have possibly already been sick before the trip, back in our day. See, there goes that oldness again. Back in our day, our parents sent you to school sick. You was gonna go and you was just gonna wait for the nurse to call and you was gonna be all right. Um, but I threw up several times that day on the field trip at the ice rink. And I always associated ice skating with throwing up and being sick because in my 6-year-old mind, going ice skating is what made me sick. Nothing else made me sick. It was the fact that I had strapped on a pair of ice skates and went out there on the ice, and that's what got me sick. So since then, since I was 6, 7 years old, I've always disliked ice skating due to that one thing that happened. Um, but 33 years later, I got back on the ice, and I am so happy to say that I did not fall because that was a very, very big concern of mine when he said we were going ice skating. I was like, ooh, ice and blades and me. This may end up in a trip in like the ER or something like that. I don't know how this is going to work out for us, but I did not fall at all. It was awesome. um, we stayed there for a little over an hour. I think we had a 2-hour window and we ended up doing a little bit over an hour. And my son, he absolutely loved it and he caught on super quick, like super, super quick. I was just excited at first that I could actually stand up and still have my balance and walk in the ice skates. And this was before I even got on the ice. But there was this really, really nice lady there. And she gave us advice before we got on the ice. She's like, is this y'all's first time? And we were like, yes, it's showing. She's like, no, your skates just aren't tied tight enough. She's like, you got to tie your skates tight. And we're like, oh, okay, thank you. So we immediately tied our skates tighter. I was like, oh, we should have got one of those little, I don't know what they're called, the walkers that they give you at the skating rinks. My husband went out to go get one of the walkers. The lady saw us on the ice. She saw my son holding on to the side. And so she told him how to bend his knees and have his legs, like his feet, like shoulder width apart. She also said not to hold on to the side because you're going to start to use that as a clutch and you're always going to be reaching forward. Think it took my husband probably like 10 minutes to get to get the walker. And by that time, my son and I had gone around at least once, maybe two times. He did fall quite a bit. At some point, I think he kind of started doing it on purpose, but still, it was a really great time. And it was such a fun experience. And my son mentioned something about ice skating lessons. So we may have to look into that, maybe put that in the schedule at some point in time in the future. Not sure if I'm ready for that, but we'll see how it goes. Then Christmas was really low key. My mom came down and she spent a few days with us. My son has had this habit for the past 2 years of waking up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to see if Santa has come. And in fact, he had came at 3:30 when my son woke up. He ran downstairs, woke my mom up, and because we do our Christmas tree upstairs, he passed out everyone's presents and we did our Christmas thing. My mom and I went back to sleep probably about 4:30 and we slept until about 11:30. My son and my husband, they stayed up all day. I think they fell asleep somewhere between 8 o'clock and 8:45. I'm not 100% sure because I was watching a movie downstairs with my mom, but I know when I came back upstairs, they were both knocked out and done for. We also hung out with some friends, did some family activities, and we played a lot of Mega Monopoly. So for those of you who don't know, Mega Monopoly, we found it, I think, at TJ Maxx, and it adds like an extra space. So for like how there's Boardwalk and Park Place, there's a third one now, Florida. For Baltic and Mediterranean, they added a third one, Arctic. So if it's one that normally has two, it now has three spaces. If it has three spaces, it now has four spaces. You can get skyscrapers. You can also buy train depot. So that was pretty cool. And we also got Monopoly Cheaters as well. And that one was it was fun and hilarious trying to cheat and not get caught. My husband was really good at it. He was always catching me and my son, but one time he's like, "Yeah, I sold $2,000 out the bank." And we're like, "What? How did you do that?" I would try to steal a property and he would immediately catch us, or I try to like steal some money from my son and he did immediately catch us. But we're a Monopoly family over here. So Mega Monopoly and Monopoly Cheaters, those were both a fun time. They also discovered a Harry Potter wizard baking show. I think it was on HBO Max that was hosted by none other than the Weasley twins. Y'all, I love the Weasley twins. Even though I live with a bunch of muggles, we all enjoy the show. One day we got a bunch of snacks, blew up the air mattress, and watched a few episodes. And so that was pretty much what we did over the winter break. I always stay up until midnight or after midnight on New Year's Eve. My husband's usually knocked out sleep. A couple of years, my son has stayed up with me. A couple of years, I'm like, dude, you need to go to bed. But this year, he stayed up with me. I actually thought that he was going to fall asleep because he had been really tired when we were playing games. And I was reading the fifth Harry Potter book and then I was gonna watch TV for a little bit, but he came downstairs with me, and so I was like, "Well, I can't watch the show that I want to watch with him down here." So I just put on the fifth Harry Potter movie since that was the book that I was reading. I've also been trying to really get him into HP. So I turned the movie on while he was occupied with doing something else, and he eventually came over and started watching it with me. I think it was a little bit more exciting for him because he got to see a lot of the elements from the baking show that we watched. He really enjoyed that. We stayed up until way after midnight. Like, my son was so sleepy, he was delirious. He's like, "What does delirious mean?" I'm trying to explain it to him, but oh my gosh, y'all, if y'all could have seen it, he delirious, but it was hilarious. But right after midnight, he said something about my podcast, and we ended up getting sidetracked. Later on, I asked him about it, and he's actually started giving me like suggestions and tips for the show. I told him that I had a goal to reach 100 subscribers before the end of the year. I was too short, but thank you to everyone that shared my post on social media, shared my email, that asked their friends and family and anyone else to subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. I told him how I had posted on social media and that I thought that I had possibly met my goal, but I wouldn't know because of it takes the analytics like 24 hours to update. He told me that I need to double my goal for this year and add one. And so I asked him, I was like, "Well, what are your suggestions for me to get more subscribers for the show?" He said, "You should tell your listeners about yourself." I said, "Well, they already know about me." He was like, "But if you have new listeners, they don't know about you. So you should tell them about yourself. Kind of like reintroduce yourself." I said, "You know what? I'm going to take that advice." So it is now about 1 a.m. in the morning as we're talking about this. I said, "I don't want to forget what you're telling me." So I got up and I came to my computer and I started writing down. He's like, "Can I come with you?" I said, "Sure, come on." So he came, I think he turned the TV on and he was sitting there with me while I was doing this. So I was having a hard time writing this episode because I kept changing my mind about what I wanted to talk about for the first episode back. I'm very thankful that he gave me this idea. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I'm Angel, host of the Modco podcast that you are currently listening to. I started the show in April of 2023, almost 2 years of podcasting. I also host another podcast called the PR Toolkit, which I started in September of last year. That one is currently on a break because it's seasonal. I'm an author. In 2023, I wrote a book, and last year in 2024, I released it. It's called Fear and Forgiveness, a 16-day devotional and fasting journal. I've been married for a little over 12 years. And a fun, kind of crazy, wonky, weird fact about me is that I love banana pudding, but I hate bananas and pudding. I know it's super weird. Please don't judge me, but I just do. I will not eat the two separately, but together, yes, I will eat them. I actually prefer cookie pudding over banana pudding, but I will eat banana pudding. We had a dog. Her name was Allie, but sadly she passed away almost 2 years ago, and I still have not gotten over it. I know some people will say that she was just a dog and that I need to move on with my life, but she was a really big part of our lives. My husband proposed to me with her, so she will always hold a special place in my heart, and I will never forget her because she is my baby before I had a baby. So I love reading, taking a good nap, trying new foods, and not having to drive. My son also always picks on me because he's like, "Mommy, you never drive." I'm like, "Yep, and I'm fine with that." And if you have not guessed it already, I am a Harry Potter fanatic. I have finally accepted that my house is Ravenclaw. The sorting hat put me in Ravenclaw years ago. I refused to accept that because I wanted to be a Gryffindor. The sorting hat takes your thoughts into consideration about the house that you want to go in. And I just finally had to accept that I was Ravenclaw because I even tried retaking the test like multiple times, which I probably shouldn't have done just to see if it would change my house. And every time it gave me Ravenclaw. So I was like, I have to accept that I'm a Ravenclaw. But my Muggle son is a Gryffindor. My husband, who is also a Muggle, is a Hufflepuff. And while I was writing this, my son was actually over my shoulder, and he declared that he's no longer a Muggle because he watched part of the movie. I beg to differ. Like, dude, you watched one movie and you only watched probably like an hour and a half out of the 2 hour movie. That does not take away your Muggle status. I also prefer the books over the movies. You cannot call yourself a real Harry Potter fan if you have not read the books. That's all that I'm going to say about that. Um, but when I started this podcast, it was supposed to be about organization and entrepreneurship, and it has definitely changed. And I'm okay with that. I do still talk about both of those things, but I also talk about God, parenthood, life in general. I've met some great people through podcasting, and I'm happy with the direction that it's going in. And I'm so thankful that you chosen to listen to it. Before I wrap this episode up, I just wanted to say kids really do amaze me. And we as adults need to remember not to dismiss kids because they really can have great ideas and be very helpful. I was struggling trying to figure out what to write about for this episode. I changed it I don't know how many times to the point that I didn't even think I was going to be able to record it and do everything that I needed to do with it before it needed to be released. And that idea just came, and I'm like, cool, we can go with that. My son is such a great promoter for the show. He will tell anyone. My mom has a podcast. He does not always remember the name of it, but he will tell people. And then when they meet me or they talk to me, like, "Do you have a podcast?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah." They're like, "Yeah, your son told me that you had one." He wants to help spread the word. And that means so much to me. And that also just goes to show that our kids see us and they're watching what we're doing, whether they say they are, whether they're showing an interest in it, whether you think that they're not. I've had a lot of moms tell me that their children want to start a business because they saw mommy had a business. And my son just speaks such positive words over my show. It just amazes me that at 9 years old, he is so positive about things. I mean, even way more positive than I am about things. I love seeing the world through his eyes and hearing the confidence that he has. And I pray that he never loses it. And I also pray that I get some of that confidence. So the next time a kid is trying to tell you something or give you a suggestion, maybe take a minute to stop and listen to them. Like, really listen to them, not just listen to them to try to brush them off or get them to go about their day so you can go about your day, but like really, really listen to them because they may give you your next great idea or help you get through a writer's block. That's all for today. I will talk to you all next time. Are you loving the Modco podcast? Head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and review. This helps others to find the show and gets the show listed in the recommendation section. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode and that you're able to gain something from it. Talk to you next time. Thank you to Chris Leonard for the music for this week's episode.